Hey everyone, so today we are going to make this vegan chicken salad sandwich. We make the chicken with soya and we are going to get started. So let's go. I'm going to be using these soya chunks as well as, actually you only need one veggie in this, which is the onions and then all these other ingredients that make up the dish. Okay, so let's just get started. So you will need a large Ziploc bag and you're going to take your soya chunks, right? I'm just going to do the entire box because it's a pretty popular dish. So you take them, put them in your bag here, and then you fill it with water. So you want to get enough water in there so it basically covers everything, and then you're going to let this soak for about an hour. So I'm going to fill this up. I think that's good. All the soy. Actually, you know what? I need to put a little bit more, just because as I started to move it around. There you go. So now I'm gonna almost close it, push out all the air. Right. If a little water, this is why I'm doing it in the sink. If a little water sprinkles out, that's fine, and I'm gonna seal it tight. So now you have your soya in water and it's going to rehydrate. So I've let this sit for about 30 minutes now, and what I'm going to do is see how big they got. I'm going to squeeze out all the water and I'm going to rinse it out a couple of times because I just want to get whatever taste is in this out so I can remarinate it with the taste, with the proper flavors that I want. Okay, so run that out. It's quite a bit. So I made the entire bag because I know I'll use this product for curries and other things. So I use the entire bag, but you feel free to just use a cup or so of the dried product, and it should make enough for a few sandwiches. Right? The great thing about these sandwiches is that you can just keep them in the fridge, and you can use them for meal prep. You can even just put them on top of salads instead of putting them on sandwiches. So don't be worried about just that one use. So there we go. This is why I like using Ziploc bags. So you can just squeeze the entire thing. And then fill it up once again. Rinse it out, and then I will marinate. I'll fill it up to marinate it. So I think this is almost ready. Yep. There we go. So I'm going to add some water, and then I'm going to add, I'll show you while the water is being added to it. So I've got this, it's a vegan chicken soup base. You can get it we get it from our local store called Bulk Barn in Canada. So it's an open goods product. And so I'll take 2 tablespoons, just pop it in there. If you can't find this, you could probably just use, there's some left over in the spoon, just put it back. I didn't just add more. Okay. So if you can't find this specific product, you could just use like vegetable broth. Maybe like a bouillon or something like that, and just let it dissolve. So you want to have it cover everything, get all the air out. and then just massage it. And now if you're going to use this in the recipe today, then you just need to give it about at least, I would say at least 30 minutes to let it sit and marinate. If you're going to use it for another day, if you're just prepping for another day, just feel free to just put it in the fridge. So I'm going to get a pan nice and hot here, a small pan, and I'm going to take about 2 cups of the soya with some of the marinade as well. I ended up separating it into 2 different bags. So we've got our soya here, and I'm going to cook this soya out. So this soya is going to take about, I'm going to say about 5 to 8 minutes to cook. So once it gets nice and hot, I'll be back in about 30 seconds to a minute. So I got the pan nice and hot now. It's starting to cook, and I'm going to basically cover this and let this cook out and dry out. So I'm going to let this cook for about 5 to 6 minutes, and then what I'll do is I'll uncover it after it's cooked and let it dry out a bit. Okay, so we'll cover this back up. Sorry if the vapor is making it hard to see. Be back in 5 minutes. Okay, so it's been about roughly 5 minutes, and now I'm just going to mix this and try to dry it out a bit so it gets a little bit more tough instead of soggy and squishy. There we go. It's looking good. Just a few more minutes, maybe another minute of this, and it'll start to dry out. That's what we want, and then we're going to have to let this cool. Very close to the desired texture that I would want. I think we're almost there. So it's dried out now. Don't see much of. Well, you can squish it down a bit if you think it's still. It's holding on to some of the marinade. So just make sure it fully dries out. You can see how much vapor is coming out of this, how much steam is coming out of this. So it means it's still got quite a bit of liquid in the soya. There we go. I think we're almost there. So now what I'm going to do is just turn down the heat and just let it sit for a little bit, and then I'm going to go through how I cool this. I'm going to have to obviously move it off this hot pan to get it to cool properly. It's starting to stick now, so it's perfect. Basically, the signs that it's drying out. Okay, so I'm going to take it off this burner as well, just because the burner will continue to heat, and I will be right back. So now the dish is cooled a little bit. I'm going to move it to the wooden board. You're going to see it's still a little hot. I'm going to move it to the wooden board so that I find that it cools the best on wood. It's kind of like sushi rice. You want to move it into a different pot or something. Sushi rice, they use wooden bowls just because it'll absorb the heat and it won't conduct the heat, right? So I'll move it over here, and then we'll give it a few minutes, and then I'm gonna start to chop it up into little smaller bits. So it's cooling down a bit, so I'm just gonna start chopping this up into small bits, and I'll show you what I mean by small. I'm just going to go through this entire thing and just cut it up into like, I don't know how to describe it. I'm not gonna mince it, but I'm just gonna try to take each block and maybe cut it into one direction, so it's like long strands. I guess that's slicing is a proper term for it. And then this will also allow it to cool faster. I just didn't want to do it when it was straight off the pan, because that would have been hard to handle. But if you have a sharp knife, this is not it's not a hard thing to do. Just there might be some parts that are squishy, so that might be the most annoying piece of this. There we go. And almost done. And it's starting to cool pretty well now, so we will be able to quickly go through this and finish this dish up. I guess the time-consuming part about this dish is doing the preparation for the soya, because we're going from a dehydrated, dry state to a final meal. But the benefit of that is, yes, I understand in terms of convenience, it's not going to be as quickly to produce. You can't just like last minute just decide to do this, although it doesn't take that long. But it is also convenient from a perspective of you can keep this for a long time. Like this product, I believe it's got an 8-month shelf life for a year, and sorry, pre-cooked. So you could keep this around, store it away. You don't have to worry about like tofu or anything else that will spoil. All right, and so just gonna finish off so we don't leave any big pieces, and it looks good. And we should be able to continue to the next step, which is just putting everything together now. Okay, so let's start moving this into our mixing bowl. So I've got this nice bowl there, and I want to get the soya in first, so I'll just use a knife so I don't want to mess up my hand. Put that all in there, and then you can drop the onions on top. So this is half of a red onion. I just diced it finely. Put that in there, and then we can start working on the other components of the dish. There we go. Put this aside. A couple pieces that fell out here. All right. Okay, so the first step is we want to take some vegan mayo. So take 2 tablespoons of vegan mayo. Make sure we don't waste. And then we'll start with the other components. So I've got some nutritional yeast flakes. I'll take a tablespoon of this. And then I'll take the dry ingredients, because otherwise I'm going to have to keep on messing with my spoon. So I've got some dill weed here. So I'm going to do half a tablespoon of dill weed. And then got some garlic powder. Do half a teaspoon of that. It was a half a teaspoon of the dill weed as well. Sorry if I said tablespoon. And then we've got, don't mix up these two. The cayenne and the paprika, do not mix these two up. You won't be happy with the results. So we'll take half a teaspoon. Actually, you could take a teaspoon of paprika, because paprika is very good for seasoning. the cayenne. You don't need a very lot of cayenne. Cayenne's a pretty hard, heavy spice. So I'll use like an eighth of a teaspoon. And then the parts that I like including, just from a health perspective, is the turmeric. So I'll use half a teaspoon of turmeric. You don't have to use organic. I actually just bought this because I was running short, and then I'm refilling it with, stuff that I get from the Indian store, just because it's an easier pouch to carry. Last thing you want to do is drop a lot of turmeric on the ground. So I've got some black pepper. I need to do a couple of grinds of black pepper. It helps activate the turmeric. It makes it more potent, proficient, I guess. And then we've got mayo. Sorry, not mayo, mustard. I'm going to do a teaspoon of mustard. There we go. And we can start mixing everything together. It's a pretty simple recipe. There we go. Look at that. Now, you're welcome to throw in other veggies like grated carrots, or if you want to toss some celery in there. I think I'm out of celery, so I didn't include it in this, but normally I'll use celery in my egg salad sandwiches, or another dish that's very similar to this, probably actually might be the same, is the chickpea tuna. The only difference is I add I'll add like dulse. It's like a seaweed, dulse flakes, to make it into a tuna, but I'll use chickpeas rather than the soya. For the egg salad sandwich, it's primarily the same ingredients that I used here, but I'll use the Indian black salt to make it have that eggy taste, and tofu. So, these salads, you can do quite a bit with these primary ingredients, and look, and it is ready. That's the product right there that we're looking for. So it's gonna have a chewiness, and it's also going to be coated with the mayo and all those other spices. So now, if you want to add a little bit of kick to this, what you can do is you can toss in some sriracha, mix it in. At this point, you can add any other ingredients. This is the base of the dish, the recipe I wanted to show you, but you can add other ingredients in. I do like to add a little bit of relish. Relish is one of the underappreciated condiments, but it's basically pickles, right? Cut up finely, so that's sweet relish. I'll add that in, and it does make the recipe a lot better too. There we have it. So I will plate it and I'll show you the end product. So we've got a bagel here. This is actually a gluten-free bagel by a company called Odo's. Considering I'm doing this meal has been gluten-free so far, so why not just use the gluten-free bagel to plate it. So I could add lettuce or something, but I am out of lettuce, so I'm just going to top this off. There we go. And there you have it. And that is the final product.